welcome to Aspiring Something TV. We're here today with Heidi Robinson. Heidi is a new mama, a successful real estate agent, and she also happens to be one of my closest friends. Oh, and a fun fact about her, her son, his due date was like a day next to mine, and I was praying that we had the same birthday, but we didn't. But we can still have a joint birthday, right?
We'll throw a joint birthday party. Yes.
It'll be raging. So Heidi got married a little over a year ago, and a few months into her marriage, and 6 months into her pregnancy, she got thrown a major curveball. So Heidi, would you mind sharing a little about that curveball?
So when I was 6 months pregnant on September 25th, my husband had a massive heart attack. 5 seconds in and I'm already crying.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry. And for those of you who don't know,
What we normally talk what?
Heidi's husband is a cop, and he's very passionate about his work, and it's a very high stress job. Heidi's husband is my age, our age, and no one that age has a heart attack. It is it's normal for an 80-year-old to have a heart attack, but a 29-year-old that's not normal.
Right. So like I was saying, I usually can just talk about this and tell this story easily without getting emotional, but we just hit our 1 year mark of the heart attack. So it was kind of like a rush of all the feelings of what happened coming back. But he had just gotten off of work, came home and took a shower and laid down in bed. It was about 10:30 and he said he couldn't catch his breath. And I said, okay, we'll just lay down, have some water and take a couple deep breaths. And my husband being my husband, kind of got like, Heidi, that's not what's happening. Like, stop telling me to take big breaths. Something's going on. And he got up and walked to the living room to like try to move around to see if he could like catch his breath. And that's when he sat on the couch and realized like he didn't feel okay. And he told me to call 911. So I did. And as soon as I got off the phone with 911, we called his dad, and 911 paramedics in the fire department all got here, hooked him up to the EKG, and realized that he was having a STEMI, which basically means that your heart is having a heart attack, essentially. So they loaded him up into the ambulance and we went to Henry Mayo. And at this point, the ambulance, they didn't tell me what was going on because I was in the car. I could just see on their face that there was something wrong, and I knew that the fire department was talking to my father-in-law and that they were telling him what was wrong, but they weren't telling me because I was the wife in the front seat of the ambulance, just not knowing what was going on, and they didn't want to freak me out. So we got to the hospital and no one still told me what was going on.
So wait, quick question. So what is going on in your mind and your heart like during this time? I mean, I can't even fathom the person that you love the most watching this happen and then not like pretty much just gaslighting you and not telling you what's going on. Like, I can't even imagine that.
I just really kept thinking that like he couldn't breathe, that like it was just like something was wrong with his chest,
Like an
that like
asthma
I
attack.
don't know if something happened to his lungs because he said he couldn't like catch his breath. So I always thought there was something wrong with like him not being able to catch his breath, like he was having an allergic reaction or something and couldn't breathe. Not that it was his heart, and not that he was like close to possibly dying. I didn't ever have those thoughts of crossing my mind because I just thought this is random. He's healthy, athletic 29-year-old. I did not think anything was actually as serious as it was at this point. So we're driving to the hospital and we get there and they rush him into the emergency room, and there are probably about 12 to 15 nurses and doctors surrounding him and hooking him up to patches, going over all of his vitals, looking at everything. And they called in the cardiologist, and the cardiologist came in and said, we need to take him up to the cath lab to find out what's going on. And basically the cath lab would tell him, are you having a heart attack or are you not? Because they weren't sure if like something was punctured in his heart. At this point, once we got to the emergency room, they knew something was wrong with his heart, but they didn't know if it was a heart attack or if he had like a puncture from being hit in his chest or something, because he's too young to have a heart attack. So they didn't even think to go down the heart attack route until he started to show all the other symptoms of it. So he went up to the cath lab, and that's where he was there for about 3 hours. And so I didn't know what was going on for 3 hours. And
Oh my gosh. Oh,
at the point where I was like, there's something wrong. They moved us from the emergency room waiting area to the cath lab waiting area. And at this point, it was his mom, his dad, me, and our best friend Ash was with us. And we didn't know what was going on. We kind of just, that typical scene in a movie where the door opens and you look to see if it's the doctor that you need to talk to. And like, okay, so wait. And then the one that we were waiting to see finally came out, and he calls us to the back room where Mark is basically laying in like a bed where it almost looks like an MRI, where he's getting an MRI and he's laying in there, and the doctor comes in and he puts us up in front of like 4 computer monitors and said, your husband had a massive heart attack, what's known as the widowmaker. He had a blood clot.
the
uh,
Widowmaker.
it's called the
And
widowmaker.
you're 6 months pregnant and you're hearing that. Oh my gosh. That's literally what it's called. That's horrible.
So it's called the widowmaker because the likelihood of you surviving that type of heart attack is, I believe it's less than 2%. It's crazy. So he had a 100% blockage in his left anterior descending aorta. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. And the doctor was able to go up and suck out the blood clot, like literally with a vacuum, suck it out.
Oh my God.
And then we were able to go in and see him about 2 hours after that point. 2 hours after knowing he had a heart attack was when we were able to go see him in the ICU.
That is insane. So
So he was in the hospital for a week and I never left. 6 months pregnant, the nurses just let me stay because they were wonderful and amazing. They were absolutely amazing taking care of us. And you're not really supposed to like sleep in the bed because if anything happens to the person who's in the hospital, something, they need to be able to get to them, but they weren't going to make me sleep on a chair at 6 months pregnant. So they let me cuddle up next to him and just be with him. And it was
that's
crazy, but
late 20s. I don't know anyone who has gone through something like that, and to be to about to have a baby, that just has to be extremely stressful. Gary V, I don't know if you know Gary V, he has this quote and it says, the only thing that's certain in life is death. And I feel like that kind of scare with death had to change your perception on your aspirations, like what's important to you. And so how do you think that your mind changed from that traumatic event, how it changed your whole your personal and your whole family's just perception on life, and what you value?
so from then on, I catch myself telling my family I love you more often than I used to, like giving them a hug goodbye every little time they leave, which I think everyone should do, not only because of the experience that we had, but just because you love your family and you need to always remind your family how much they mean to you and the importance they have to you in their life or in your life. And so I started to do that post Mark's heart attack because of course it means much more now. Also, you know that everyone who's in your life is important, but everyone gets caught up in their own day-to-day business. People have jobs, they have families, they have kids, everything gets caught up. But when something like that happens, time, it's kind of silly to say, but time stops. You stop and you look at everything, and work doesn't matter. School at that point, of course it's important, but you get what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. The little day-to-day things doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you didn't go to the grocery store. It doesn't matter that you weren't able to make dinner that night. It's just almost smacks you in the face and it's like, you need to slow down. This is scary. And our friends and family came over and came to us and showed us more love than we could have ever possibly imagined.
That's amazing. I have the biggest chills right now. That's just so amazing. And it's so true. Like everything day to day, it's like it's also fleeting. Something that may seem so important, like something to get off your to-do list or something so, like, does this matter? In the scheme of things, does this matter? But when it's like literally life or death, like that, you know, literally rewires your brain.
It doesn't matter. Not that those little things don't matter to us anymore, but we just have a little bit more of a different perspective. Because of the heart attack, Mark's work has been on hold for the last year. And not just because he hasn't been at work, because he's taking this time off medical or taking a medical leave. We have been able to go on trips. Even with COVID, we've spent time as a family more this year and taken more vacations than we ever have. I was on maternity leave. So Mark had his heart attack in September of 2019. We went, obviously, I took some time off after that happened. And then I had Beckham in January. So then I was on maternity leave. And we were able to visit grandparents in Tahoe that we go to regularly, or we go to like once or twice a year. We've already been there 3 times this year. And it's because we value more time together as a family because of that incident. We know that it's important to make those types of things a priority. If I can take 3 or 4 days off of work, then I'm going to go do something with my family and not just sit at home and do the laundry and catch up on chores and catch up on housework. We're going to spend the time together as a family. And we've really been focusing on that more than anything after Mark's incident.
That is so beautiful. I love that so much. That is such a good perspective that, it's so unfortunate that you had to go through that, but it's amazing that you took that darkness and are now able to implement it and now teach your son these important things. Because I mean, I know your mom and I know my mom, and I think moms have a tendency to be the doers and the providers, but also sometimes it's like you lack that just presence, that present moment and those memories. And it's like you could spend the whole day doing laundry, but at the end of the day, it's like going to Tahoe and spending that time with grandparents and family and laughs, and you're always going to remember that. And if that was your last day on earth, you'd rather do the time with family rather than the laundry and the checklist and stuff.
It's cliche, but making the memories is so much more important than the checklist.
Yeah. So going into your pregnancy, you were planning on kind of doing a maternity leave, going slowly back into work, but then with everything that happened with Mark, you kind of had to switch gears and dive into real estate full force. How was that adaptation? And yeah, how was that adaptation?
So we always had a plan that Mark was going to be the provider and I would work part-time with our kids and I was able to still be at home. And with everything that happened, of course, things changed and I needed to go to work and he was staying home. And so he was staying home with Beckham and I just threw myself full force into real estate. I'd been doing it for about a year before I returned back from maternity leave, a year and a half ish. And it was always kind of part-time because I was doing serving while doing real estate just because real estate's so up and down. And especially when you get started, it's a slow start when you're a beginner. So I had to just hit the ground hard with no other backup plan for money financially. So I just was 100% into real estate as soon as I came back from maternity leave. And it's been fun. It's real estate's crazy, but it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoy meeting families and going out and finding a perfect home that they never dreamed that they were going to be able to afford and now they can. So I just see their eyes light up. Or another family who's just buying a second property as an income property in California because it's California property and it's lucrative. So I enjoy it, and I do have days that I struggle. Is my career something that I want to do full time and miss little parts here and there with being a mom? Or is it better for my family because I am providing and I am bringing home money to help my family? And I think that's the biggest struggle because it was such a change from what Mark and I had always planned on doing. And when it happened, I was emotional about it because I don't do well with change. I'm just not that type. So when I had to completely change my mind, like, okay, you're gonna go to work from I don't even know, 7 to 7, I guess, but have a newborn at home or a 3-month-old at home, I had a hard time adjusting. And I think a lot of moms do, especially when we go back to work. And I only am a mom of one, but it was hard. Just
That has to be hard. What do you,
way.
oh shoot, you kind of broke in and out.
Oh,
Okay,
I can
sorry.
hear you.
Oh, so what would you say, like, I mean, working 7 to 7 and not seeing your kid, is that why, do you think also like on the weekends you are intentionally like present with Beckham, or how do you, I know that you do work from home, which is nice, some days or most days, is it?
Mhm.
Um,
So I've kind of set up my schedule in my calendar. I have my times of when I need to do things, like it's blocked out in hours, and I have like family time every day, whether it's from about 12 to 2 is usually when I try to do it because Beckham goes down for his nap at 2, and then at 12 o'clock we play, we hang out, we go outside, we
oh,
just hang out or whatever in his room. And I try to break up my days that way and make sure that I am home for dinner as often as I can, because sometimes I have showings in the evenings because families, that's their time off work also. So I try to do early afternoons and evenings with the family, but then weekends are hard because that's also when I'm out doing open houses or showings. So I block out the times in my schedule to accommodate work and family as best as I can. It took a while. It wasn't easy. It took adjusting of
that's
what
a
works, what
priority for
doesn't work.
you, and that's so nice. There's so many parents, it's like, even though they work 9 to 5, they get home and they're still on their phone, and it's like, yeah, they're physically with that, they're physically with their kids, but they're not, emotionally there. And kids pick up on that. Even though you're physically there, you have to be attentive and present. And I think, with the day and age of the cell phone, it's getting harder and harder to just be present. And so that Beckham is so lucky to have you. So I want to know, COVID has been a freaking chaotic, last 6, 9 months. And I know me as a single, female, no kids, it's been hard mentally, just to see the state of the world and everything, amplified. How do you take on, like, I know I have other mom friends who are like really scared for their kids with everything, from COVID to sex trafficking to politics to just, how do you balance all those, fears within yourself and then also for your kid?
So I don't think I've figured it out. I don't have a balance of how I manage the thoughts, the stress, the anxiety, because some days I think, wow, I'm really lucky that during COVID and that 1 month where like the world stopped, we were lucky to have that time at home with our newborn. He was 3 months old when all that happened. So we looked at it as, look, we are so lucky that we get to be home right now because he is so small and we get to take in this time and cherish it. And then the world started opening back up and it was scary. It's like, okay, we're not taking him to the grocery store. We're not taking him anywhere because it's too scary and he's so small. He can't do anything. He doesn't have any shots or anything. And then things started to progress and I worried about what his childhood is now going to look like, because when you and I were in school, we had everything. We played outside, we played with friends, we went to dances, we went to prom and graduation. And now I'm just thinking on a much smaller scale for elementary school. What is his elementary school going to look like? And that's where my anxiety and my stress kind of takes off. That's where I don't have an idea of how to control it, because I am scared for their future. And I say they because my niece and my nephew, I see that my nephew's doing school online and he's 5, and I don't want that for him. I see him get frustrated at the computer because he doesn't understand the math, and that's not fair. They should be in a classroom learning. Not that I need to go into what I believe is the right and what's wrong way of doing things, but
Yeah. No, but yeah, I mean the numbers show kids, the number is 0.00000 for kids to get COVID, and the psychological effects. I mean, I remember recently learning about cyber psychology and just implementing phones and having a parent on an iPad or a phone in the presence of the kid. We're just now learning what that psychology does for kids growing up. Now, we don't know what wearing a mask looks like, or having people all around wearing masks in grocery stores. I mean, talk about stranger danger and nonverbal cues, and like their social skills are going to be different. People are like, don't look at that person, they're not wearing a mask, or that person sneezed, and then people are going to see a sneeze and have freaking anxiety attack, and it's like that's part of the human body. You sneeze if you have an allergy, so it's just
and that's when we very first started, not very first, but when things started to open back up and it was okay to go out to the grocery store and whatever, we weren't hunkering down and hoarding. But I took Beckham out and I was wearing a mask at the grocery store, and I remember I was excited to pick things up. Like when I was pregnant, I would be excited to think of the times when I get to pick up an orange and say, look, it's an orange, or look, this is an avocado, it's green, and show him those things. And of course I can say it, but the way that my mouth moves makes me wonder, okay, because he can't see my mouth, is it going to be a change in the way he learns? When in the grand scheme of things, probably not, because it's one trip to the grocery store versus, of course, I talk to him at home all the time saying orange and green or whichever. But it's those little things where he doesn't understand why I have a mask on when we're out and I have a mask off when we're at home. So we just went to the pumpkin patch this morning and he's ripping my mask off. And I think he just wants to play with it. But how do you explain when he's 6 months old, I have to wear a mask, or even to a 2 or 3-year-old, you have to wear a mask? It's just, it scares me. And that's what I get worried about, of what our future for our kids looks like.
Yeah. Okay, side note, because so many times during this COVID, I've been thinking, I wish I knew more sign language, because you majored in sign language. And so how do you plan on teaching Beckham that at all? Or
So we've done some words like all done and more, and he's 9 months old, so he's doesn't really get it. And when I say all done, he knows what that means, but he doesn't form the signs. So that's good. When he gets a little older and he starts to form the signs of like, I want more water or whichever, then I do plan on giving him more signs and cues and learning or knowing some sign. Yeah, that's a plan.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one more question. So you have gone from, you majored in sign language, and then you loved traveling, you became a flight attendant, but then you realized you wanted to be home with your family more. So you changed to a recruiting job, but you didn't really like the environment there. So then you changed. You are very, even though you said you didn't like change, I view you as someone who is adaptable and doesn't stick to one, I guess, career as an identity so much. I think so many of us, it's like we define what we do as who we are. But you've been really good about not letting that be your identity, and kind of being swift in adapting with the times, and saying, oh, I realize I don't like this actually, and being okay with that, and then moving on. What would you say to someone that maybe struggles with that, who's in a career that maybe doesn't give them enough time with their family, or maybe a career that they just realize they don't like, or they don't like the environment or the people they're with? What would you say are some tips that can help them?
Leave. If you're not happy and you don't feel like it's going to be something that fits your lifestyle, leave. There's lots of other jobs. Of course, it's hard when you've built 5, 10, 15 years in a career and then you all of a sudden change. Of course, that's much bigger than what I dealt with. I was at jobs shorter amount of times. And when I started to realize that I wasn't happy or it wasn't going to fit my long-term goal, I changed it before I was too far into it. So anyone who's our age are still changing careers. Like that's Mark. Mark's about to have to change his career. So you have to think about what's important to you. Think about what you want. What are your long-term goals? If you want to be able to stay home with your kids from 0 to the time they go to school, then work now. Work your booty off now. Then take that time off if you can, or do the part-time job, or find a job where you can be online. There's so many different options out there, especially in today's world, that we can change to or even create ourselves to make it what we want to be. And that's what I also love about moms who create businesses, because they want to be home with their kid. They still need a source of income, but they want to be home with their kids. So they create a business or they do what works for them. And that's why I got into real estate. I knew I was going to do it part-time with family. Things changed and I ended up doing it full-time, but it's still okay. And I do it full-time now where I work from home. My office is my home. I don't go anywhere to go into an office. I work here. My time out is when I'm working with clients. And I would just say, if you're not happy with a job or you're feeling like it's not long term, then leave. Because what's going to be the reason for leaving later if you know that you're not happy now?
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. Well, thank you, Heidi, so much. I think so many people are gonna love listening to your journey and story. I know for me, just even hearing that again, even though I know Mark, I know what happened, but hearing that again, it really just puts everything in perspective, like what really matters, in life. So I have one last question, one final question, and this is a hard question. So if you can't come up with one, but in this specific season, if you could be aspiring one thing, what would it be?
I want to take in the holidays. It's Beckham's first holidays. I want to aspire to live every little moment and just take it all in for his first Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and really spend that time, because this year has been a wild year in all aspects. And now I want to make sure that we're really taking advantage of being a family together and stay a family together and build memories like we talked about.
Yes. I'm excited to spend Halloween with you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Okay, well, Heidi, I love you so much. It was so good to talk to you. And
Love you.
we'll see you later.
All right, bye. Thank you.